Hello, child of God. I welcome you once again to Christ Without Borders. Now, I come here to share a prophetic dream that the Lord showed to me. This one, it was on the 10th of March. Now, I was sent to a time of great scarcity. A time of great scarcity. And the place I was in, it was a time of great scarcity in the world. I was speaking to a woman in the market. She is Nigerian because of the accent she was using. Now, this woman had stored tomatoes, oil, and spaghetti. Take note of the items I'm mentioning here, because in that time, anybody who has been able to store these items will be able to sell it for a lot of money. It's going to become hot selling things. It's going to be in high demand. The first woman I spoke to in this market was a Nigerian woman. Because of her accent, she somehow had been able to store tomatoes, oil, and spaghetti. And that was the first woman, and that was what she was selling. Now, I spoke to another woman. The second lady I spoke to was selling maize. You see raw maize, the dried one. That's what this second lady was selling in the shop. This was a marketplace. The shop didn't belong to her. The shop belonged to a relative of hers who had passed on for whatever reason. And then as I spoke to her in this shop, she was expressing her gratitude. She was glad that this relative of hers was able to store these things, and now that whoever this person is has passed on, she was able to sell these things, which is bringing a lot of revenue and income to her. This is a time of great scarcity that is coming on the earth, or has already begun, is already in its early stages. I don't know. What I was not told was if these are things that are going to take place in Nigeria. I was not told that. But the lady I was speaking to in the market, especially the first lady I was speaking to, was a Nigerian, because she was using pure Nigerian accent. Now, another thing I saw in this dream was that story buildings, proper story buildings, were being built with shipping containers. Story buildings. You see how we build story buildings? Proper story buildings were being built with shipping containers. Shipping containers, the ones on the seas, the one they use for import-export. Story buildings were being built they were using shipping containers, and they're stacking them one on top of the other to build story buildings. These are things that are going to happen in the future. And take note of the things I'm saying, and position yourself, the skills with the shipping containers, how to convert them into buildings, whatever. And this is a trend that we see a lot. We see the guys outside doing it. I know it's taking off in Nigeria, because some of them, one of the video I came across was complaining of how expensive a bag of cement was. And I don't know if these are things God is going to use to bless his children. through some of these things. Me, I come here and then share what he has shown me because he wants me to share this. Shipping containers were being used to build story buildings. And then if you watch that movie, Ready Player One, if you have not watched Ready Player One, get Ready Player One from fzmovies.net and watch it. And we see it a lot. This home ports. You see the Chinese are doing a lot of this thing. Home ports, some small kind of box, and everything is in. And if you have watched Ready Player One, that was the kind of houses they were staying in their time, stacking some kind of portable boxes. I think even Huawei has one on top of the other, and that was people's where people were staying. That's where people were living in. A great time of scarcity. Now, there was in this story buildings, these shipping containers that were used to construct story buildings, there were some very key materials, there were very key elements. One of them being a kind of pole or metal bar that allowed this to be possible. So you can look around building of shipping containers in the form of a story building, and look around the materials you will need to make that possible, to make it strong, to make it durable, and to make it possible. Look around the materials you will need to build or to stack one shipping container on top of the other and convert them into story buildings. And look at the materials you will need to put up. Look at the materials you need to put up that kind of structure. Because the next thing I was shown in this market was there was one man who had a shop over there, and there were certain building materials that were needed to be able to convert these shipping containers into story buildings. That was selling hot. That was a hot cake in the market. I was directed to one man in this vision, and what he dealt with kind of things he sold, were materials, were things, iron bars and other things that allowed people to convert these shipping containers into story buildings. And it was a hot cake. I was not told which country this was for. But the lady I was speaking to, the first lady I was speaking to in the market was a Nigerian woman. She had a Nigerian accent. I was talking about oil, tomatoes. I was talking about spaghetti. Spaghetti. This was what she was selling. I was talking about maize. Raw maize that has been dried. You know, the one they put in a sack. Maize. And then the third thing, the last thing I was shown were shipping containers that were being converted into story buildings. And it seemed as if that was a trend now. And so the material that was making it possible for people to do some of these things was also hot cake, and that was bringing a lot of revenue into those who were selling them. I was not told that it was for Nigeria, but I know the woman I spoke to, the first woman I was speaking to, who was a Nigerian. There's some kind of connection to that, and I know because of the Nigerian dollar and the Nigerian currency and all that, a lot of people are even, because because of the bag of cement is now very expensive in Nigeria. I don't know. I was not told this was for Nigeria, but by speaking to that woman, the first woman in the market, who was a Nigerian, Nigeria, you should pay attention to this. This can be a place. These are things. You get into it, store them in large quantities, because in the times ahead, it's going to bring a lot of revenue to you. It was time of great scarcity. And one of the things I realized was everybody was on edge. You know, when you approach anybody trying to buy anything, they felt you were coming to beg. Everybody was on edge in this place. So take note. I take you to God for more understanding and revelation.